Oh, hey, I didn't see you there. This is gonna be a long video, probably the longest one that I've made to date. If you didn't know already, I write scripts for 95% of the videos that I've made on my channel. I'm not naturally this articulate, trust me. I stumble over my own words worse than Joe Biden stumbled on the stairs of Air Force One. Point being, I like to present this information to you guys in an essay-like format. I do always have timestamps in the description of my videos for people that do want to skip ahead to a point that they'd like to learn more about. If you find this method of delivering information unacceptable conduct, then I'm sorry, but you're really not gonna like my content. Listen man, these videos are about making virtual money in an online video game. That's not exactly an exhilarating topic, okay? I'm doing my best here. But yeah, without further ado, let me drop some more knowledge regarding trading, and in this case, trading mistakes in ESO. I think something that can be agreed upon by all members of the ESO community is that a lot of concepts in the game are not clearly explained from playing the game alone. Hello, animation canceling? Never heard of her. Fortunately, there are a lot of really amazing ESO content creators that create guides that can help point us in the right direction and lead us down a path to discovery and better understanding the game. Regardless, I can also see the appeal of not wanting to rely on someone else's advice and simply playing the game your own way so that you can learn through your own trials and tribulations. And while it's true that ultimately you are free to play the game however you'd like, there are a couple situations where it truly would benefit you greatly to at least consider going out of your way to ensure that you're being more efficient and optimal with your playstyle. You may be able to heavy attack your way to flawless conquer, sure, but you'll likely never be able to get any VDLC hard mode trial clears by just pressing down your left mouse button, I can tell you that. You may be able to make some humble earnings by purchasing furnishings from the furnishing vendors found in various zones in the game and relisting them for slightly higher, but you simply aren't going to make nearly as much gold as you would if you put as much effort into some other endeavor.
Yeah, this is big brain time.
All this to say that the scenarios that I'll be discussing in this video I'd consider to be mistakes when it comes to trading, simply because they're inefficient and unreliable ways to make gold. But again, to each their own. I'm not going to try to convince you to trade any other way, but rather attempt to shed some light on why these trading practices aren't optimal. If you're doing these things yourself, either unintentionally because these kinds of things aren't easily learned from playing the game alone and you simply weren't aware, or on purpose knowing full well what you're doing, you may want to consider doing something else. Judging from the messages that I see in guild chats from time to time, it's clear to me that there are more than a few people that are simply unaware of the fact that certain items can be purchased from various NPC vendors in the game. The most common request I'll see is when a guildie's looking to buy a specific enchanting rune, for example. Many people don't know that you can actually buy all of the potency runes needed for crafting writs from the enchanting NPC themselves. Likewise, there are a lot of furnishings, especially plants, that can be bought from furnishing vendors in the major cities of each zone. You can also purchase default race style materials from any crafting NPC, like a blacksmith or a woodworker, just to name a few examples. What sellers do then is attempt to capitalize from this unawareness by effectively flipping these kinds of items that can be bought from NPCs in the game. They'll pay the standard price for the item in question and then relist the item or items for significantly more, hoping that some poor fool will be none the wiser and purchase their wares for much more than they're really worth, because they simply didn't know that they could even purchase them any other way. While I am aware that this little trick has been known to work on occasion, I also know that it doesn't happen all that often. I think it's fair to say that it's not a particularly clever trading strategy to have your customer base consist of players that are not aware that they can buy your items for much less. There aren't too many players in this situation as it is, and these players are bound to eventually realize that they're being ripped off at some point. Heck, I used to buy most of my trees and vines from the guild traders for my homes, until I realized that I could get them for a fraction of the price from furnishing vendors. Needless to say, when I found out I was being juked, I demanded to speak to the manager because that was some bullshit. Plus, the amount of profit that you make doing this is pretty marginal if you ask me. And it's not like these kinds of items are flying off the shelves either, meaning your precious guild store slots are arguably being wasted as your wares sit there day in and day out without being purchased. You may think that you're being big brain here by debating people, but at the end of the day, the only person that you're debating is yourself. If you enjoy the notion of flipping, I'd recommend doing so by flipping items that can't be purchased from NPCs instead. If you ever see an item listed on the traders for less than it's worth, go ahead and buy it to relist it for a price that you're confident you'll be able to sell it for. I guarantee you that you will not only sell these items faster, but you'll make much more gold from these kinds of transactions as well. And if you had no idea that these kinds of items can be purchased from NPCs, now you know. If you're looking to buy them from the source, unless someone lists an item for cheaper, I suppose. And if you had been selling these kinds of items without knowing where they actually came from, you may want to consider selling something else instead. It happens, man. Trading can be really overwhelming. It can be hard to know where to start. I will say though, you're generally going to want to avoid selling the following items, either because it's highly unlikely that the item will be purchased, or because you'd make more gold doing something else with the gear. These items serve no purpose other than to be sold to a merchant for gold. Players have literally zero use for ornate gear, so if you list them up on the traders, especially for a price that is more expensive than what you'd get if you did sell the item to a merchant, you can count on it never selling. Like ornate gear, random pieces of gear that aren't part of any set will also not sell well. Again, players have virtually zero use for gear like this, unless they're looking for a piece of gear with a specific trait so that they can research it. But even then, a player like that can easily ask a friend or a guildmate to construct a piece of gear for research purposes, or they can research the gear that they passively pick up from playing the game themselves. It would be a waste of a guild store slot to list an item like this. Some gear is better off deconstructed than put up on the trader. I made an entire guide on how to better tell which gear you should decon and which gear you should upgrade to sell that I'll link in the description if you'd like a more thorough explanation. The too long didn't watch of it all is that some gear that's in a bad trait, like invigorating, but is of a certain style, like Ivory Brigade, is better off being deconstructed for a chance at receiving valuable style materials. You're better off selling those style mats. I've created an image that I'll also leave a link to below that fully showcases all of the valuable style materials and the gear that yields them. These style materials are valuable because they have secondary uses besides just being used to craft gear that's in the same style. Secondary uses like being an ingredient for a consumable or a necessary component of a furnishing plan. So the next time that you get a crappy piece of gear, take a look at what style it's in. If it's in a valuable style, go ahead and decon it, instead of listing it for super cheap on the trader or straight up selling it to the merchant. While most maps in the game are so cheap my characters likely wouldn't even so much as wipe their asses with them, there are a few maps that are worth much more. And this is because upon finding the treasure chest associated with the treasure map in question, there is a small chance that you could find a lead for an ancestral motif. As of recording this video, these are the following treasure maps that have a chance to yield ancestral motif leads. Because these motifs are so rare, they're worth quite a lot, so naturally, the maps that have a chance to yield them are also worth more than usual. To give you guys an example, most maps on PCNA go for around 500 gold each. Western Skyrim maps, which can produce Ancestral Reach leads, currently go for closer to 20k. Blackwood maps, which can produce Ancestral Akaviri leads, currently go for closer to 50 or 60k. Be sure to stay in the know, and see if other future DLC maps follow this Ancestral lead pattern. Be sure to sell those maps for lots. Imagine a world where you go to Costco and buy up stacks of Mountain Dew in bulk, but then end up paying more per unit because of it. That's basically the ESO market. Unlike the real world, you can actually charge more per unit if you sell something in bulk on ESO. This is because, well, simply put, buyers are pretty lazy. Most rich motherfuckers don't want to browse TTC for the best deals, which is why they just stick to shopping in the most popular cities with the best trading guilds, since those guilds will usually have what they're looking for. They also don't want to go around buying 5 bug gloss here, 10 bew gloss there, 17 boob gloss over there. No, they'd rather just buy 200 butt floss all at once for convenience so that they can get to crafting their tri-stat potions to go get packed up in Cyrodiil in a timely manner. So as a seller, take advantage of this notion by selling your wares in bulk. I'm in some pretty elite trading guilds, right? Well, I always sell my items in bulk, and I've consistently witnessed my stacks of items being sold over my guildie's items, even though we're selling the same item and we're all listing them at the same price. I mean, shit, sometimes I list mine for even higher and they'll still sell first. The only difference is I'm listing my items in stacks of 200 and they aren't. Something to consider. 99% of the time, you're better off using your materials to craft an item and sell that item as opposed to just selling the materials used to craft that item, seeing as the crafted item is worth more than the crafting cost for that item. This model always made sense to me. I find that it rewards crafters, as it should, since being a crafter requires an investment of time and gold. You should be rewarded for this by being able to sell a crafted item for more than the crafting cost of that item. And as I mentioned, this is almost always the case. So if you're a crafter yourself and have the ability to craft valuable potions or valuable food, go ahead and sell those items instead of selling the materials needed to craft those items, since you'll make more gold that way. I should just point out that while this notion is still applicable to the sale of furnishings and gear, in the sense that it's definitely possible to sell both of those items for more than their crafting cost, those items simply don't sell as quickly as materials themselves. So if you get an excess supply of mats, it would make sense to sell, say, a stack of 200 heartwood, as opposed to using 200 heartwood to craft furnishings and then sell those furnishings. The former would sell much more quickly, which would provide you with a sum of gold that you can use to reinvest in another item to make more gold in a short amount of time. I guess it just depends what you're looking for. Fast gold so that you can reinvest it as a means to make more money, or a slower stream of gold, but you get much more out of the materials that you're getting rid of. If you noticed, I did say 99% of the time, not 100%. There have been instances in the past, on my server anyways, where crafted items sold for less than their crafting cost. This doesn't happen very often, mind you, but be sure to compare the crafting cost and selling price of an item before you go about making a decision regarding what to do with your materials. I can't stress enough how important it is to price check your items before you sell them. Even absolute nerds, absolute Sigma traders like me that don't use trading add-ons because I don't even need them to be absolutely filthy rich, still partake in price checking to ensure that I'm getting the most out of my wares. My preferred method of price checking is using the TTC website because I can see what the most current listings are for any particular item, and I've always found this data to be more important than sales data because it allows me to spot trends. This kind of information allows me to spot amazing items to buy for super cheap and sell for crazy high amounts. But I could spend a whole video talking about this notion, so I'll spare you guys for now. Point being, you may think that you know the price for an item when in reality you're dead wrong, and the item that you're listing for 20k is actually now worth closer to 120k because there aren't many instances of that item up on the market at that current point in time, and some fucking tryhard like Artea is buying up all of your items to try to create a monopoly or some shit. Even in less extreme cases, items experience increases in price in light of supply and demand all the time. It can be hard to keep up with. So it's in your best interest to at least be sure that you're getting the most out of your items. It takes no more than 10 seconds to price check, usually, and it can save you upwards of hundreds of thousands of gold. Conversely, price checking can prevent you from listing an item for too high and having it so that it doesn't sell. You really don't want this to be happening, since the item in question will be taking up a precious guild store slot. Plus, you lose out on gold every time you relist an item, since you lose the listing fee. On the topic of price checking, this reminds me of another common mistake that I see from newer traders that haven't quite gotten the rhythm of things yet. This mistake revolves around events on ESO. While we may have all different kinds of events on ESO, there are a few similarities between them, the most noteworthy one being that each event yields an event-specific style page, or 2 or 3. If you ever want to play a good prank on your guild master, drop all of your style pages into the guild bank during an event. Just kidding, please, for the love of Oriel, do not do that. These style pages only drop during certain events, upon completing event-themed tasks, or opening event-themed reward boxes. What ends up happening then is that as a new event begins, people will take a look at their add-on data and think that the style pages that they're getting are worth ludicrous amounts of gold, since the add-on data is looking at how much the style pages in question were worth prior to the event, when in reality, style pages that drop during an event are not going to be worth much at all while you're in the midst of an event because, well, you can just receive them from playing the game. The reason why the add-on data suggests that they're worth more is because people were indeed paying more for them at a time when they were not dropping at all. Take the Maelstrom style pages for example. Prior to the Year 1 event in 2021, those style pages hadn't dropped since 2018. Once they were reintroduced during the event, the prices naturally faltered. Not all style pages experience the same increase in price either. Style pages that are related to events that happen once or multiple times a year, like PvP events or seasonal events, are simply never going to be worth as much as style pages related to events that happen once every 3 years, like zone-specific events. So invest in them wisely. And above all else, the point to take away here is to hold on to your event style pages. Selling them at the same time that they're dropping is when you'll get the worst return for them, since the market will be the most saturated with them. It's also generally a bad idea to sell the gear from the zones that the event takes place in for the same reason. For example, while Briarheart and Pariah are both valuable sets that have a solid track record of being great sellers, it would be an awful time to try and farm for and sell these gear sets during an Arsenium event, when there are double drops and crowds of people in Hrothgar spamming dailies for event tickets. If you happen to get a valuable piece of gear passively just by completing event tasks, you're better off hanging onto it to sell on another day. Conversely, if you're a big brain trader like myself, you can go about buying up cheap and valuable gear at the end of an event that you know you'll be able to flip for much more later. Do you have any idea how many precise Briarheart daggers I bought up during the Year 1 event that I'm gonna flip for profit? I'll tell you, I bought a f***ing shit ton of them. While it's not necessary to be a master crafter on ESO, there are some bare minimums that I think all players should strive for when building their main character, and that would be maxing out your potion passive so that you can have better uptimes on your critical buffs for PvP and PvE, and maxing out the crafting passives that allow you to upgrade gear for less materials. Once you have the latter passives maxed out, you really don't have any excuse to not upgrade valuable gear that you find from playing the game to at least purple quality before selling it. I suppose you could chalk it up to laziness, but I mean, you're this deep into a fucking ESO trading video, so something tells me you guys aren't that lazy. Upgrading a valuable piece of gear to at least purple quality will increase the likelihood of it selling dramatically, seeing as sellers will be keen to equip and use purple gear, not green or blue gear. Like I mentioned back when I was talking about Mountain Dew, buyers are lazy as fuck. They don't want to have to hop on their crafter to upgrade the gear that they just bought from you before they put it on. No, they want to slap that sucker on immediately so that they can get back to 12v1ing ESO streamers in Cyrodiil, or wiping in a trial for 2 hours. Don't be the type of person to get your gear flipped from me, okay? Just take that extra 10 seconds that it would take you to upgrade your gear to at least purple quality before you list it. I guarantee you will get so much more gold than the upgrading cost, trust me. Those to me are the most glaring mistakes that I see happen in ESO when it comes to trading, although I'm certain that I could have very well missed a few others. Have you guys ever made some kind of mistake while trading that I didn't cover in this video? If you ever have, or if you've heard of someone else doing so, you should definitely let us know about it in the comments of this video to help others and hopefully spare them from making the very same mistake. If you enjoy this kind of sweaty ESO trading and gold earning content, you should definitely join our Discord server. I even have a social and trading guild over on PCNA that you can join via our server if you're interested. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next video. But before I go, I'd like to end this video a little differently than usual. One of my created an extra special outro for me that I'd like to use this week. For those of you that unironically like to tell me that I don't know what I'm on about and I make all of my gold on ESO from selling feet pics, this one goes out to you guys. Enjoy.